Welcome to the WalaWay, everybody. This is Imran Nanlawala. I got a very special guest today. We've been having some technical difficulties. A fellow colleague of mine, good individual, Vasim Kapadia. How you doing, man?
I'm great, man. Alhamdulillah. How are you?
I'm doing good, brother. So a lot to discuss today. Want to talk about your own business ventures, Kapswim. Want to talk about some of your work at Launchgood in the business development team, and also talk about one of our co-shared interests, which is MMA, and maybe derive some lessons from one of our favorite fighters, brother Habib, not Khabib, and also kind of talk about some of the entrepreneurship ventures he's gotten into. So, Wasim, before we get into the MMA portion, I found it very interesting, man. Capswim, this business venture that you started. So, in a nutshell, what is Capswim?
That is correct. So, in a nutshell, Kapswim is a faith based swimwear brand specifically for men. So, essentially, when you kind of go into Walmart, Nike, whatever it might be, obviously you find swimwear there for men. Coming from a faith-based perspective, as a Muslim, I'm of the Muslim faith, so there are religious requirements for men. So we took a look into the market. As a kid growing up, I always knew that you had to wear clothing that met certain requirements that covered certain areas, in addition to what's kind of already out there in the mainstream. And as I got older, as I became an adult, I realized that people were kind of trying to figure out different ways to do it without just having a specific product that did it. So we decided to come up with it on our own, and luckily we were able to do that, and we built a small brand out of it.
So, I mean, most people probably would have seen this barrier, which is okay, I want to swim, but primarily the swimwear that exists does not comply with my personal views or religious views or social views. And they would have just stopped right there. So, what was the impetus? Like, what forced you into even thinking about, no, we got to find a solution to this unique problem?
I've always had somewhat of an entrepreneurial spirit, so to speak. As a kid, I always was trying to do different things, organizing hockey leagues in the community, things like that. So as I got older, I realized that there was another way that could translate, right? I always thought entrepreneurship, especially if you go on social media nowadays, I think everyone kind of has entrepreneur, in their bio. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, but that spirit of entrepreneurship, of recognizing a problem and creating a solution for it. Interestingly enough, a couple of years ago, I met somebody who has done extremely well in the business world, and he told me something that really stuck with me, and that was, if you can serve a need well enough to the extent that someone is willing to pay you for it, that's when you have a successful business.
Hmm.
And when I heard that, when he told me that, that stuck with me. And so when I was thinking about different ways to kind of approach this, I'm like, you know what, there might be a possibility here. So we went ahead and did it. And luckily, we're not massive. We're not at any we're not competing with Hurleys or whatnot, because at the end of the day, there's still an educational piece that's associated with it. But we are trying to get the word out every single day.
I mean, I think people often have ideas, right? So people will have these like creative or innovative ideas, but then they stop at the idea portion because then they're like, in your example, okay, maybe I don't have the money to start this venture, or where do I get these shorts made, or who's going to do the logo, or who's going to do the design, who's going to create the website. So, why I would say, unlike others, and I know you already mentioned that you have the entrepreneurial like mindset, or you have that desire that most successful entrepreneurs do. But when you saw those challenges, how did you approach tackling them?
I think it's extremely important to break up the problem you're trying to solve, right? It goes back to that saying that Rome wasn't built in a day. And anything that you want to grasp well, it's kind of like the 10,000 hour rule, right? If you want to do anything, if you want to become an expert at anything, they say there's 10,000 hours that you need to put into it. Similarly to any problem that you're trying to solve, it's extremely important to break it up into little bits and pieces, because if you try and attack it in one attempt, there's a high chance that it's going to fail, right? For us, we took it one step at a time, right? What I think, anytime you start something is always extremely exciting. There's always a honeymoon period, right? And then you hit that first bump, and you can either choose to stop or keep going. And if you choose to push through it, then you'll succeed at level one, and then you may come across something else. So that's really what entrepreneurship is, right? It's a bunch of challenges that come and go, and people may have seen these images where it's just a bunch of, it's like this graph thing that just goes up and down, right? Whereas it's like you have a job and it's like this, but if you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, it's like this. And that's really what it is. Because for us, it's like we're just doing something simple, right? We're just creating a pair of shorts. But the amount of challenges that we ran into for such a small brand, it was definitely surprising.
So talk about some of the values, because I'm on the website and I find it very interesting. For example, you already explained this portion of it, but value number one is our faith. This is our why. But the second value is very intriguing: build relationships, not customers, and then integrity always. So talk about the building relationships over having or procuring customers, and then the integrity portion of it.
Yeah. Considering we do what we do, right? That there's a faith-based element to this. It's not about just selling a product for us. And it's never been just about selling a product. I think it's really easy to just sell somebody something, but to actually create that relationship, you got to take it to that next level, right? You need to treat people with dignity and respect, and not just as a customer, right? You need to think about them as a partner that is going to, because at the end of the day, there's this really cool feeling of seeing somebody wear something or buy something that you've created, right? So when they purchase those shorts from you, they're spending dollars that they've worked extremely hard for. Right? I think in today's digital age, I think it's become really easy to just try and convert everybody and see everybody as dollars and cents, right? But everyone's a human being. People work hard for their money, right? And when they're spending it on something that you've created, you need to respect that. And so that's kind of what we mean, that when someone has feedback, when someone has a question, obviously always approach it with the best of intentions. And that all goes back to our why, right? As again, like I said, coming from being a Muslim, coming from the Islamic faith, it's extremely important to treat each and every individual with respect and dignity.
And I'm assuming that goes hand in hand with not looking them as customers and building a relationship, but that's also now the integrity piece, because since the source of it is the faith, and I would say morality to some extent, having the integrity in your business interactions, making sure that the customer is satisfied, making sure that the product is superior, is something that is probably of utmost importance to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you start off as a like we did, as a small brand, right? You're constantly trying to improve every iteration, right? Because you may not get it right the first time. And as we did that, we ran into challenges and we made mistakes, and we sold products where we then realized there was a mistake. So, for some people it was perfectly fine. For others, they came back to us, and there's a responsibility on us to own up to those mistakes and to try and fix those, right? In whatever way possible. And it's not always, kind of going back to seeing each person. It's about understanding what people value, right? It's not always about just giving a refund, right? It's about understanding, look, these people want to be heard, right? They want their feedback either heard or implemented, right? They want it taken into consideration. So, and again, that goes back to our why, right? In terms from an integrity perspective, there's no need to lie, right? We're not going to lie and say our shorts are perfect, right? Our shorts will make you a better swimmer. Our shorts will make you the Muslim Michael Phelps, because that's not it, right? That's not how business works. And again, back to our why. And this is like, if we didn't have a why, there would be no business in this specific case, right? Because that is where we branched out from. Lying is a sin in Islam, right? So if we're going to lie to a customer, we're sinning in a process of trying to sell a product. And there really is no blessing in that. At least that's what we believe.
It's interesting that I'm really happy that you brought this portion of what you're describing up, because there's a lot of gimmicks out there. There's a lot of gurus and influencers out there who are pushing products that they probably haven't even used or that they don't use intimately, and you see this type of sales copy that this is the best or the most amazing, or it's going to do X, Y, and Z. But I think a lot of people are not looking at integrity as a component of business and sales, but they're looking at how can I get this on the market very quickly, and how can I convert interest? How can I get interest, and how can I convert that interest into purchases and sales, right? So it's really interesting in terms of the business model that you're following. And I really like the core values page that you have, even just for swim shorts, right? Many people probably wouldn't even think about having core values for selling swim apparel, but you guys did that, and I think that's really cool. So I wanted to ask you now, and obviously if you want to add something, you can, but I wanted to transition over to a little bit about some of the other stuff that you do, if you're cool with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, and just before we do that, kind of
Sure.
what you said about, people selling things that they may not necessarily believe in, or, just to convert it to a dollar, whatever it might be. The product we sell is purpose based. And that's, I think, the main point that I want to carry over, is the fact that it's not just for looks, right? There's a greater purpose to what we do and the product we sell, right? And in a way, I say it's not for this world, it's for another world, right? And it's all that all encompassing world that, if you believe in a higher power, you kind of know what I'm trying to refer to. So that's really what it is. And anytime we conduct business, we always go about it with that in the forefront of our minds.
I really appreciate that explanation, man. So let's use that to transition to talking about Launchgood, which I guess serves a very similar purpose. And talk about, just for our viewers who have never heard of Launchgood, give us like a quick one sentence to 2 sentence overview of what Launchgood is first.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I'm at work right now trying to give people the overview, but absolutely. So Launchgood is the world's largest Muslim crowdfunding platform. And what we're trying to do with the platform is highlight good within the Muslim community in all the different ways that people are doing good out in a global community, whether that's in Canada, where I am, in the US, and all the way to Malaysia. We have a global team that does amazing work all over the world.
I think it's a very innovative idea, but what's very interesting for non-Muslims who are listening to this, can you give us a quick, do you remember when that attack happened on the synagogue, and then some also, I think, Jewish grave sites were vandalized? How did Launchgood respond to such attacks and events?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for the sake of full transparency, I wasn't on the team at that time, but I do remember that Launchgood was able to get campaigns up right away, and they raised thousands and thousands of dollars. And I think it's extremely crucial because, everything that kind of happens, in a lot of the negativity that happens in the world, there's this association with Muslims and being different, right? Being being the other, and Muslims are only in this part of the world or that part of the world. But in reality, Muslims are a global community, right? And those events specifically, whether it's the events that happened at the synagogue, or what happened in New Zealand, Launchgood as a Muslim platform was able to amplify the voice and to raise supporters and contributions from a global perspective, and they did some amazing work.
And what do you specifically do, or what does your team do on the business development side? Because I see some crossover in terms of what you talked about, Kapswim, and the approach that you take with these customers who you don't really treat like customers. So what do you guys do on the business dev side?
So this is what I'm doing right now is exactly it. So in speaking to people, communicating what Launchgood is. People have questions, right? People obviously heard of other crowdfunding platforms as well, and again, coming back to the integrity of it, right? We don't lie saying don't use this or don't use that, right? I think every community has a specific base where it might be better for them. With Launchgood, like I said, it's a Muslim crowdfunding platform, right? Where we get that Muslim global audience. So for people that do feel that that suits better for them, that's kind of who we try and connect with. We give them an understanding of the platform, the benefits of it, how they can maximize it. We strategize with them, and then we kind of just explain how they can get their campaigns up and running.
Yeah, what's interesting, other than everything that you just mentioned, though, is from my experience, it doesn't seem like you guys take a customer approach, right? It's very intimate, very personalized, and it seems like you guys go above and beyond to really help out these potential users of the system to make sure that they're getting the best experience and the best environment to pitch their campaigns on. So I would say that's probably something that's very unique.
Absolutely. And people are knowledgeable, right? Whether it's somebody who's trying to buy a pair of shorts or someone that's looking to start a campaign on Launchgood, people are knowledgeable, right? So we don't have the room to say things that are untrue or to sell them something that we don't actually have, right? Because at some point it's going to come back to bite us, right? So it's more so about educating, right, and building that long-term relationship with the users to allow them to grow with us and us to grow with them, right? So if I'm approaching, for example, yourself, Imran, right now to say, hey, why don't you come on to Launchgood? I'm not looking at it from a perspective of, Imran, why don't you do one campaign on Launchgood and then leave, right? That's not it. It's, Imran, why don't you come on to Launchgood? Let's start with one campaign. Let's see how that goes. And we'll take some feedback after that, and then we'll grow from there.
So you mentioned, so we have Kapswim, and then we have Launchgood, which is like social entrepreneurship, and you explained how they're helping multiple individuals and organizations. Now let's transition to something we're very excited about and something that we have a lot of fun with, which is MMA. And you wrote a few articles about Khabib. So why did you write these articles about Khabib? Why the interest in Khabib, and in general, why the interest in MMA?
I'll be honest with you. Anytime, as kind of like a disclaimer, like I have this big smile on my face right now because anytime I hear or talk about Khabib, like my face just lights up. He is. I'm too young to have watched Muhammad Ali, but he's our Muhammad Ali, right? And that's the way I see it. On just last week, I was watching an ESPN video, Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, and they're ranking the greatest athletes. And Stephen A. Smith had Muhammad Ali at the top. And the reason he did is because his rationale was something along the lines of athletes don't just operate in the realm of the arena. It's also outside the arena in terms of like the social causes and whatnot that they take part in. I see Khabib in the exact same way. To retire in the prime of your career for a bigger reason. And for us, again, with Kapswim, it's our why, right? And for him, it's the respect for parents, which again goes back to the same why. It's amazing. And that's kind of why I look up to him more as a person than I do even as an athlete.
Yeah, it's interesting because about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, somebody from Yakin Institute, an instructor there, was asking me like, why do I look up to Khabib? And I said exactly the same thing. I said he's our era's Muhammad Ali, right? And maybe not to the same extent because of the things Muhammad Ali had to go through at a personal level, but to a large extent, yes, in terms of different things that he stands for and his values, and occasionally jumping on social media and explaining things in terms of injustices that are happening. Now, from a post MMA vantage point, and in terms of what we talked about in the beginning, which is entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, what have you found? How have you found that Khabib has transitioned from his post MMA life? Like, what do you see are some of the endeavors that he's gotten into?
So we kind of talked about this briefly before we started recording this, but he has his protein bar or his kind of his nutrition supplements and whatnot that he's dealing in. It's called Fitru. And I follow them on Instagram, so I see their updates and stuff. A couple of friends of mine actually got some in, and I tried them, and it was decent. It was some good stuff. And then he obviously has his Eagle MMA championships, which he's doing. I think it's in Russia, and they obviously have fighters from all over, which is really cool. But I think the coolest thing he's doing is just a couple weeks ago, if people watch Islam Makhachev fight, he was in his corner, and I was listening to his coach after, and he said he's sliding into the role of his dad. And obviously, his dad passed away not too long ago, so may Allah rest his soul. But yeah, he's stepping in extremely well, and he's gone huge. I don't know, like he's still training and stuff, but he's gone even bigger. And maybe it's just because we've seen every time he cuts and whatnot, but he looks like he's just ready to go at the drop of a dime.
Yeah, one thing that I find, I'm happy that you brought up the point in terms of him stepping into the corner to coach his family member Islam. I was explaining to someone that when you're still in your prime, like there's still a lot of ego that's left, right? And when you see guys at your level who are competing, it's normal for the psychology to take over, and you're like, I could handle this guy, I could beat this guy single-handedly or very easily. But he's transitioned into the coach role in his prime as a fighter very effectively, and it makes me think that he's very selfless, right? And it's very humbling to see someone at this level be so motivated to see his team members and family members win, and how like impassioned he is when he's coaching them from the sidelines. And then also the entrepreneurship stuff, right? I didn't know about the protein bar. I did know about Ego MMA. I know he bought some. I believe he bought some Russian MMA promotion in the last couple of months. I heard he was getting into like telecommunications, farming, and a couple other things. So it's very intriguing to see. Sometimes we look at these people like one-dimensionally, right? Oh no, this person, he's a dumb fighter, or he's just a dumb athlete, right? But then when you see how they move and shake outside of the octagon, and you see the different things that they're getting involved in, it's really amazing to see.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree. And he's, kind of earlier we were talking about the other, right? And people being different. I think people see Dagestan because it's in Russia. I think before Khabib, many people probably didn't know what Dagestan was, right? And then when they heard about Khabib, then they just saw him wrestling a bear. So then they're really like, what is this guy doing? But let me ask you something.
Go ahead.
As someone in their, I think you and I are around the same age, right? Around, in our 30s or whatever.
Yep.
What does, when you're a kid, I think it's very easy to look up to athletes, right? To look up to Michael Jordan, to look up to this guy and be like, wow, this guy's amazing, right? As a kid. But I think it's more rare to look up to people as you get older, because you're your own person, right? You're like, I don't need to look up to an athlete, right? But I told you what Khabib kind of means to me. He's someone I look up to, and not just because of what he does in the ring, but how his success outside of the ring has translated into success within the ring, and vice versa. How would you say do you look up to him? Like what is that kind of like for you?
Yeah, I would say it's probably one of the few individuals that I actually do admire and look up to. And it's not very easy to say, especially as a man, I feel, and I'm just being honest, like it's not easy to say that you look up to another man as a grown man, right? But so I don't really fanboy over individuals or people. I don't have anybody's posters or basketball cards or MMA cards or T-shirts. But Habib is definitely one guy that I would love to have a private chat with, or someone that I would, tell my kids to watch in terms of the way he conducts himself in and outside of the ring. And he just seems like an amazing individual, man, amazing story. And this is why you never know, man, where you're going to get your next like hero figure or someone who's going to be just an amazing individual. This guy's from a village in Dagestan. I think it's called, it starts with an M. I don't know if you know the name. Malak. Anyways.
I think it's something along the lines of Makachev, because and the reason why I know that is because when Islam fought a couple weeks ago, it said hometown and it said Makachev something, and I'm like, it's Islam of Makachev, right? Like where he's from.
Yeah, and that's exactly where Habib is from. So, a kid from a poor city village in Dagestan, and because he's very good at one thing, and because he has a good head on his shoulders, and he has a good father, and he has a good mother, and he has good individuals around him, now his life has become transformational, and he's able to transform the lives of others. And you see how he's received wherever he goes. You even see some people will say, okay, well, that's because, he's Muslim, you're Muslim, so you like him. But you even see like how non-Muslims, a lot of them admire him and they look up to him. So that's when someone's really achieved a good status. And that's why I hope he's an individual that, stays on the straight and narrow and doesn't get involved in anything bad, because by the time it's all said and done, he could have had a great storied life, where not only what he did in the octagon, but what he was able to inspire others to do outside of the octagon. So yeah, definitely, man, he's one of the few individuals that I look up to. Obviously, Muhammad Ali was another one. I did look up to. I'm from Chicago, so I did look up to Michael Jordan, but that's from a very specific perspective, right? That is as an athlete. That is as a champion. That is as a stone cold killer on the court. Off the court, whole different story, right? And that's why Habib is in even higher esteem, because a stone cold killer on the court, like Michael Jordan, undefeated in a one-on-one sport where you can't hide behind teammates or you can't hide behind coaching, etc. But off the court also, with all the schools and the programs and the different business ventures and motivational speaking, etc. Yeah, I definitely look up to him.
And there's something that you mentioned, a word that you mentioned was hero. And I think that's extremely important, especially when like someone like yourself, you have kids. And as a Muslim, I think in today's day and age, it's difficult to find people, especially when it comes to like pop culture and famous people in general, whose values and their attributes and the way they go about life in general line up with exactly the way you want to live. Sometimes you see people and it's like they do this, which is amazing, but then they do this, which you may not necessarily want your child exposed to, right? With Khabib, there isn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, he hasn't done anything where it's like, I wouldn't want my child to do this, right? Everything he does, he's on point with, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, I think, again, people don't understand the temptation that these guys have and the lifestyle that they could live. I mean, he's someone who's, as a physical man, who beats other men, right? It is what it is. That gets you respect from women and from men, because you're like a alpha, right? Whatever that means. But then also the way he conducts himself and the amount of money he has and how famous he is in so many different countries, in Europe, in Eastern Europe, Russia, in the Middle East, in North America, because he fights out of California. But you see that there's really nothing bad that has come out about him in terms of him falling into certain evil, what we consider from our moral viewpoint, what we would consider evil. But even what others would say is like something you want to be away from, like womanizing, gambling, drinking, etc. And I think that's a testament to him as an individual, his upbringing, and the people he chooses to keep around him, right? That keep him grounded. So definitely, man, he's someone who loved to get on the podcast one day. I had his coach on my podcast. I don't know if I told you, but I had Coach Javier Mendez on the podcast. But I would love to get Khabib on the podcast one day.
I'll be there.
You definitely, you and many others.
Yeah, I can imagine that list, man.
Yeah, man, he's definitely someone to get on, and I think he's roughly our age, man, which is crazy, right? In terms of the amount that he's accomplished just as a fighter. And I'm not saying just like that fighters are only fighters, but again, any step of the way he could have gotten it wrong. He could have made a bad move. But this is what happens when every step of what you're doing is guided and there's advice. You have to have sincere people around you who can advise you, who can kind of pull you by the collar and tell you when you're messing up. So again, great case study, the life of Khabib Nurmagomedov. And yeah, man, I think we're at the 30-minute mark. So I'll let you close it out if you want to add anything. But guys, for the listeners, Vasim Kapadia, colleague of mine, good friend, Kapswim, Launchgood, MMA enthusiast. Go ahead, Vasim.
Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. Like I told you before, I'm just a guy who likes to talk about sports and particularly MMA. So thanks for having me on. I did some study. I did a bit of research about you and what you do like to do with your podcast and stuff too. I know how you like to analyze high performance and people that are obviously achieve certain heights. So even when it comes to the realm of Khabib, I think the key thing is discipline. Right, Logan Paul, who's a YouTuber turned boxer, he has a podcast himself, and him and his buddies were talking about what the one guy on there was talking about how he admires people that are disciplined, right? That have a certain level of discipline in whatever it is, not just sports. They were talking about specifically when it comes to Khabib and faith. And I just want to say that from the stuff that you do, I think discipline is always a key element of people that have achieved extremely high levels of success. So, that's kind of what I'm striving for, and hopefully it's something that we can all kind of try and shoot for.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for doing your research, and thank you for obviously giving us from your time. People are increasingly getting more and more busy, man. So it's anytime someone or any individual can give time to another, it's much appreciated, man. So looking forward to having you back, man. And you could probably be a guest on our MMA Mondays with me and Chris.
I appreciate that. And thank you, man. Honestly, it's a privilege for me to be here. I'm extremely humbled. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Vasim, guys. Vasim of Kapswim, of Launchgood, and you'll see him again on MMA Mondays. This is Imran Nanlawala of the WalaWay. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe. And if you benefited, please forward it to your friends and family. Thank you guys and have a nice day.